here's what we're trying to do in this problem. So in this problem, we're saying we're trying to predict the GDP per capita from the continent, right? So predicting from the continent sounds kind of weird, but it's not that weird actually, right? So every time we're predicting some quantity, well, we're measuring something about, in this case, the country, like the object about which we're predicting things. So before we were measuring the GDP per capita and we're predicting life expectancy, right? So that kind of makes sense. So here, what we're measuring in quotes about the continent is the country, is the continent in which this country is located, right? So, for example, so the first row of Gapminder is Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is in Asia. So we're kind of measuring about Afghanistan, like which continent is it on? Asia. Okay, so based on that, we'll make the prediction. So that means that the prediction for every country in Asia, every country in Europe, every country in the Americas, and so on, is gonna be the same, right? In the same way that the predicted life expectancy, the previous question, would be the same for two countries which have the same GDP per capita. Okay. So, okay, all right. Let's first try to run this code. So this code, what it does is it just makes a fit. So here's the output. That's not actually the same output as in the did we mess up Gapminder? I think we might have messed up Gapminder. But okay, let's go with this. So that is really odd. No, sorry, that is exactly the same. So okay, so what we're trying, so how do we predict, based on this, how do we predict the GDP per capita for a country that's in Asia? So the way you predict with categorical variables is you say it's going to be the intercept plus the coefficient that's associated with that particular continent. Now here, one continent is missing, so Africa is missing. So you always are going to have one fewer coefficients than you have categories. So the prediction for Africa is just going to be the intercept. Okay. So that way you get 5 different predictions for the 5 different continents. So for Africa, the missing category, it's going to be this. For the Americas, it's going to be this plus this. For Asia, it's going to be this plus this, and so on.
But what would the x be?
So the question here is like, well, like what is the x? So this is the thing that we discussed with the indicator or the dummy variables, right? So the x's would be the dummy variables that we create. So we can write it out. So this is not going to be used in solving this problem, but we could still do it. So we would say, like, we'll have one dummy variable that's going to be a Americas, right? And that's going to be 1 if the country is in the Americas, 0 otherwise, right? And then we're going to have another one, and that's going to be a Asia, sorry. And that's the same thing, but for Asia. So that would be Asia and so on. So if you want to write out the equation like this, it would be something like GDP per capita is approximately equal to some kind of intercept. Well, we actually know what the intercept is, right? So we can write it as 2194 plus 4942 times I Americas plus 5708 times, so let's write the times here or it'll be really confusing. So I Asia plus and so on, and then the last one is going to be for Oceania. It's going to be like this. All right, and that works out to the same thing, right? So if the country is in the Americas, then this is 1, but this is 0 and this is 0. So the prediction is going to be this plus this. Okay, so that's going to be the same thing. So, okay, so let's get to what it is that we actually need to do. So we need to write a function that outputs the prediction. So what are we given? So we have a sample call here. The sample call is this. So I'll just comment it out. So we're giving fit dollar coefficients like this. So if we see what it looks like, so it's a vector. So it actually contains the names here, but we're not going to use them. So it's still a vector in the sense that you can get the intercept by saying fit dollar coefficients at 1, and that's going to give you the first element. And then you can get the coefficient for Europe by saying, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be fit dollar coefficient 4. Right, so that's going to be the same thing. Okay, all right. So what do we need to do? So we need to return a different thing. So for example, for each continent. So for example, for the Americas, what we need to do is we need to return fit coefficients at 1 plus fit coefficients at 2. That is the prediction for a country in the Americas. That would be a prediction for a country in Asia. The prediction for a country in Africa is going to be just this. Okay, so that is all we need to do. So what's left is to just write the function and we'll be done. So this is called predict GDP continent. And what it takes is the coefficients. So we'll call it coefs. Yeah, exactly. So we'll write coefs and we'll write the continent like this. Okay. So, okay, all right. So here, like, if else is the easiest and most straightforward thing to do, right? So we can say, like, if the country is equal to Asia, we'll say return, like we already said, right? So this would be coefficients 1 plus coefficients 2.
Wait, why is it not just CONT?
You're right. This should be coefficient. Yeah, sorry. This should be continent. So this is, and this should be coefs. Okay. Thank you. So now what we do is we say if here. So here we do an else if, right? So the way it works is you check, is this true? Is this, well, we'll change it to Americas, I guess. So we'll say, is this true? And now we'll change this to this. And now I can just copy and paste this. So this would be Europe and
I think America is 2, right?
So yeah, so I think, so which one is the first one? So we can just check. Yeah, so Americas is the first one. Yeah. So Americas, and that would be like this, and then Asia. This is Asia, and then next one is Europe. And then the next one is Oceania. So this would be a 4, and this would be a 5. And finally, we'll return just coefs 1 for Africa. Right, so here, like, I assume that if it's not any of the 4, it's Africa. So we just return coefs 1, and we're done. That's all there is to it. Okay, so so because we made the mistake in the previous one, so we make sure that, so coefs is referred to here, so we do not refer to anything that's outside the function. And cont refers to this, so that's also good. So we're just using the information that we're given, and we're returning the thing that we need to return. So now we can say, okay, so let's just try it out. So I want to predict for Asia, for example. And this is what I get. So how do I know that I got it right? So, and by the way, so this gets sent to coefs, and this gets sent to the continent. So one way is to say, well, I'll look at gapminder, the first line of gapminder. that's a country in Asia. So I'll just take to predict for that, right? So I'll say predict. I have my fit, so I got it before. And I'll say new data is equal to gapminder 1. So the prediction for all the countries in Asia is going to be the same, so might as well predict for Afghanistan. All it cares about is the continent. And you get the same thing. So we might worry that like for Africa, there is like a problem, right? So, and like certainly kind of it makes sense before you submit to check stuff like that. So let's find like Angola, fine. So for Angola, let's try to predict. So this is line 38. Just go back here. So I'll try to predict for line 38, and I'll try to predict for Africa here. I could of course do it separately as well. So this is the prediction that I make.
38.
Was it?
38.
30, yeah. Yeah. Well, as it happens, 32 works just as well. Yeah, so 32 is Algeria. So, but yeah, you're right, 38. And here's the prediction for 32. Of course, for the prediction for Angola and Algeria, it's going to be exactly the same because they're both in Africa. That's all that this model cares about is the continent. So now, while we're here, why don't we do it kind of in a slightly nicer way with grep? So here, one way to use grep. So you can try to find a certain pattern. So for example, Asia in, we'll say Americas, and we'll say Asia, and we'll say Europe, and we'll say and we'll say Africa. So here, so grep, if you give it a vector here, so we saw it briefly in lecture, it'll tell you where it found the thing. Okay, so at location 2. So if you try Africa, it'll say 5. Okay, so if we know that, what we can do is we can say, oh, like if only we had a vector
with Africa twice.
I did not say Africa twice. So this
no,
is
I mean, like if in your vector.
Oh yeah, so
twice,
then you'll get the first one.
You'll get like.
So you'll just get the first location, or possibly you'll get both. So we can try. Oh, sorry, you'll get both, of course. You'll get both.
Okay.
But yeah, but that is not the issue here. So this is like that. So if we had a vector with 5 predictions, we could just use the result of grep in order to get the answer straight away without if statements, right? So okay, so we can just do that. So we can say, okay, so we already have coefs, right? Well, we don't, but we could. So we'll say coefs is fit coefficients, right? So that is coefs. So this is the answer for Africa, right? And this is not quite the answer for the Americas. So first of all, because this is the answer for Africa, it might make sense to move Africa up front like this. Right? So if we move it like this, and now we have coefs, and we want to modify it a little bit so that it contains the answers. So one way to do it is to say, so coefs 2 through 5, so that's the ones that we need to modify, right? We can assign to that coefs 2 through 5 plus coefs at 1. So now it's going to be the predictions. So now it's like that. And now what we can say is coefs at this. And that's going to give us the answer in 2 lines. Right, and we could put that in a function again, but can do it as an exercise. So that is kind of one way to make it nicer. So another way to make it nicer is here we kind of had to assume that this was the order in which things are going to be given to us. Now, in fact, we can check the order. So we can ask what the names of coefs is, and that's going to give us like intercept, continent Americas, continent Asia, continent Europe, continent Oceania. So from that, again, you can kind of figure out, like you can, like that is not what the question is asking, but you can figure out, okay, like how do I get like the location of the Asia coefficient, for example, right?